comes to your mind when you hear structural reforms? Probably the most common buzzword describing pragmatic policy agenda in the aftermath of the financial and debt crisis. The concept of structural reforms could be seen as controversial. But should they be implemented not only as a reaction to a shock? Welcome to Real Economy. I'm Sasha Vakulina, and in this episode we are analyzing structural reforms and when is the good time to implement them. Here is a crash course.
Structural reforms are policy measures designed to boost an economy's competitiveness, growth potential and adjustment capacity. In order to ensure an economy is fit and better able to realise its growth potential, typical structural reforms focus mostly on the overall business environment, labour market and taxation. Each year the Commission undertakes a detailed analysis of each country's plans for budget, macroeconomic and structural reforms. It's called the European Semester. It then provides EU governments with country-specific recommendations for the next 12 to 18 months. And then there is also the Structural Reform Support Programme, the SRSP. Its current budget stands at 222.8 million for 2017 to 2020. For 2019, when the EU economy is expected to slow down to 1.5% growth, the SRSP will provide support to 26 member states to carry out more than 260 projects.
Structural reforms are implemented not only to stimulate growth, they can also help make this growth more inclusive. Latvia is among the countries whose economy is catching up fastest with the EU average. Guillaume Desjardins went to check it out.
Despite a decent growth rate over the last 5 years, Latvia is facing major challenges. Its population is aging, immigration is draining talents out of the country, but mostly income inequalities are among the highest in the EU, even after redistribution. To tackle these issues, the country has recently undertaken a wide array of structural reforms, such as in the education system. In vocational schools, students can now spend more time learning their future job within a company.
I think it's great that there are different programs in secondary school, and it's great that we can practice before going into working in the real world.
Thank you very much and good luck.
And this might end up being a good bet for Laura, as getting a foothold in the workplace can help to find a job after graduation, but also to access better salaries. Janina Bluma spends a lot of time in this vocational school, where she recruited more than a third of her employees.
We've been part of the process. We really work very close together with the management of the school. We really support each other. And if you say also these structural changes or reforms which have taken place here, that's discussed inside Printers Association as well as here and Ministry of Education.
Another way to tackle inequalities is through redistribution and the tax system. Up to last year, Latvia used a flat tax, the same rate for everyone, hence favoring higher income households but weighing heavily on the poor ones. But since then, things have changed. A progressive tax system has been introduced to fight income inequalities, but this collided with yet another reform.
In order to increase spending for health sector, the government decided to increase social security contribution, and this was communicated as a part of the tax reform. For some families, the tax burden actually increased a little bit as a result, but it was a PR, not very good PR for the tax reform.
Europe's economy is now on its 7th year of uninterrupted growth, but its pace is set to slow down this year in the euro area to 1.3% according to the EU, to 1.1% according to the European Central Bank, and to 1% according to the OECD. How could structural reforms help boost growth, and how to coordinate them to avoid a downturn?
We went to the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development in Paris to discuss it with Laurence Boone. That's their chief economist.
Ms. Boone, we've asked you to bring a real object to illustrate the importance of structural reforms. What's that?
My beautiful mobile phone, because it's the perfect example of how structural policies can have an impact on your day-to-day life. There are more than 100 mobile connections in Europe, mobile service providers. There are about 6 in the US, and we have much lower prices throughout the EU than you have in the US.
The growth in Europe is set to slow down this year. Now, how important in this situation with this slowdown are structural reforms and government's efforts?
Structural reform are absolutely key to make sure that every single decimal of growth will increase employment, productivity, and ultimately will increase investment. For example, to increase employment, to make sure that the cost of wages is lower, then that way firms want to hire more people. To increase employment as well, what we do is better job matching, so you have all the job agencies. Increasing education is structural reform, vocational training, lifelong learning, and many countries miss that.
Where do you think the pace of those structural reforms might have slowed down compared to some years after the crisis?
I think we have a lot more education to make in terms of timing and sequencing of the reform. I'll give you a quick example. France tried to increase tax on diesel fuel. It hurts a lot people with low income revenue living outside of urban areas who need their car. When most countries have made these reforms successfully to move towards cleaner energy and remove diesel fuel, they at the same time did a personal income tax reform to make sure that the lower income people could actually see something that was revenue neutral for them and not suffer from it. Some structural reforms you can do better when the economy is booming, and others you can do when the economy is slowing. An example of structural reforms you should do when the economy is booming is, for example, lower unemployment benefits, which provides an incentive for people to find a job more quickly. But you don't do that in bad times.
The importance of the timing and the packaging and sequencing of introducing and implementing the structural reforms. That was Laurence Boone, OECD Chief Economist on Real Economy on Euronews. Thank you.
Thank you.